younger, I was in a seminar class, and DAFA A&I visited. And the first thing he said was, I hope there's some madness in the air tonight. And I didn't know what he meant, but I thought, that's awesome. Like, I don't know what he means, but I'm going to get some of that. And so, in a way, this is a kind of an exploration, not of madness, but of what happens when you go in and out of time. And the way in which I was thinking about that, the reason why Destiny actually asked me to talk was because one day I was very excited about this thing, which apparently all poets know, but I did not know. And that is, there's this thing in poetry called the lyric and the narrative. And a lyric poem is a poem that is in all time and no time, both at once. An example of a lyric poem would be maybe Keats's Ode to a Nightingale, in which he is sitting under a tree, listening to a nightingale, and he has all these thoughts. And near the end of the poem, he's still sitting under a tree, listening to a nightingale. So there's only one moment that takes place. We haven't gone anywhere, nothing's happened, but we've experienced all these things that he's thought of in relation to this nightingale. A narrative poem would have more narrative elements, some kind of sequential or causal sequences. Maybe A leads to B, maybe it doesn't, but it could, like Godard said, you can have a beginning, middle, and end, but not necessarily in that order. But nonetheless, it's got a narrative scaffolding around it. You can have poems that are both. I think The Wasteland is a lyric poem with a narrative scaffolding, probably. So when I went to ask myself, well, how do I write a lyric poem? Because I want to write one of these, they seem cool. I asked myself, when have I ever had a lyric moment in my life? What is a lyric moment? And so I think lyric moments happen in extreme ways in a lot of different cultures, and a lot of different cultures talk about those kinds of things. There's religious experiences that are lyric. In martial arts, you're in the midst of a fight, somebody punches, you duck, they blink, you punch. You know, it seems very slow because you know exactly what's going on, but to the outside observer, everything that fight is happening very quickly, right? So you're kind of inside of those seconds that are happening because your consciousness, your awareness is expanded. There's sex, at least for women, you know, sometimes it expands outward, orgasm. There's the creative process, you're in there, you're working on your art, and, you know, very ordinary experience, you look up and it's 5 hours later, you had no clue, right? So those are kind of more or less ordinary lyric moments in your life, but how do you get to them? What do they mean? How do you stay in them? What do they give you? Those are some of the questions I was asking as well. And another aspect of the lyric moment is just how do you get into that mystery, really? What's on the other side of the visible is the invisible. How do you get there? And so some of the people who talked about that are Lorca, in this essay he gave in 1930 in Buenos Aires. He gave a talk called The Play and Theory of the Duende. And for true Spaniards, for people from Andalusia, this is a really sacred thing, and I don't want to mess with it, although in the essay he does say that it's applicable to all cultures and all people, and even really all arts, although when he's talking about it directly about Andalusian folk songs, flamenco, and the gypsies and some of their dances and songs and stuff. He talks about duende as being something that he first heard on the streets in Andalusia as, you know, he would hear this thing that said, oh, he has duende, people have duende. But then the more he researched it, and the more he kind of got deep into the Andalusian folk songs and the gypsies, really duende comes and duende goes. And you can prepare for it, and that's what the flamenco dancers are doing when they're clapping and stamping and playing their music and saying, oh, they. They are trying to call in and prepare for duende to come and visit. And they're good at what they do, they're great musicians, they're great singers, and they might be doing their thing, and Duende won't come. And what that means is that it's good, it's okay, they're doing their art, but when Duende really comes, the whole audience merges and becomes one with the performer. It's magic, because the audience feels exactly that deep emotion and that deep song of the performer. Duende is also about, the real essence of Duende is it doesn't come unless you're ready to die, unless you're ready to let go into another consciousness, another place. He talks about fighting on the edge of a well, your Duende. Duende is about struggle. It's about your fight with your inner demons. You have to be willing to risk death. He gives a couple of examples. One of them is a woman. She's singing. She's a beautiful singer. She's an amazing singer. She's at a bar. She's technically very proficient. And the bar people there work. They're like, yeah, whatever. So you can sing. Who cares? And she's like, oh. Right. So she lets down her hair. She takes a swig of vodka. Now, this doesn't mean Duende will come. But for her that night, it did. And she lets it rip, right? She's no longer singing her melodies and her harmonies all perfectly. She's allowing Duende and her own inner demons to come forth from the soles of her feet through her voice, right? She had Duende that night. If you're really good, he talks about flamenco dancers. There's the young, supple-waisted flamenco dancers who are doing their thing, right? And this old lady who's been dancing for years, she comes out, she steps once, she goes like this, and they all just like rise to their feet, right? Because she has it. She's got it, And she knows how to tap it fast. So that's Duende. And the really important thing to remember about Duende is that it's really not necessarily a nice, fun thing. It's a dark place. Not dark as in mean and bad, but it's your depths of your own your battles, really. You have to fight with it. So in relation to this is a book, I think, called The Birth of Tragedy by Nietzsche. And his argument in that book is about how great Attic tragedy is. And Attic tragedy is great because it perfectly blends the Apollonian qualities with the Dionysian qualities. And you know how those Greek gods can kind of shift and take on a lot of multifaceted personalities? Well, I'm just going to tell you what Nietzsche thinks about those gods. You might know that Apollo is the sun god. Well, he doesn't think of Apollo that way. He thinks of Apollo as the god of sculpture. And it gets a little bit complicated very quickly, but for as simple as I can make it. He's the god of sculpture. He's the god of dreaming and images, and we're all Apollonianly connected because we can all dream, right? And we know that this dream world isn't quite real, so therefore we can infer that this world might not be quite real, and there might be a world beyond this. So we can all be philosophers as well. And so we are the creator. We're the creator under the Apollonian. Under the Dionysian, that's the god of music, revelry, drunkenness. We're not the creator, we are the creation. Nietzsche talks a little bit about the Bacchanalian. Bacchus is also Dionysus, the same god. The Bacchanalian festivals, the whole townspeople, they would come out, they would dance and drink and fornicate and have a great time. Nietzsche's not so excited about that part of the Dionysian, because that's the extreme version. The Dionysian that he's really more interested in is that which takes you into the realms of the oneness with the crowd. It's kind of more of an artistic Dionysian with added tragedy. You're acting. So keep that in your mind. The Dionysian, oneness. And now I'm going to move quickly to another example of this same kind of timelessness, which is in Romanticism in around 1890, the late 1890s. they kind of corrupted Kant's idea of free will. Kant thought that free will was a great thing because men were good, right? And if they acted with their free will, then everything would be good. It turns out the Romantics didn't really agree. You've got Jekyll and Hyde, you've got Frankenstein, you've got all this kind of free will onto nature that's dubious, right? The whole of man contains both. When he exercises his free will, you get just as much bad as good. But so they were really interested in this idea of the abyss. Now the abyss is big. It's in a lot of different cosmologies. The abyss is not only depthless but topless. It goes on. You've got, when you enter the abyss, you come out, if you come out, transformed, right? Let's see, there's something else important about the abyss, and I'm forgetting about it. But at any rate, when I think of the abyss, I think, when I think of the abyss in relation to time and the creative process, I think you can go two ways with it. You can, the Romantics would call it the iridescent abyss, right? They were into it. So you can go down and you can meet your demons down there and battle them like you would with Duende and come out transformed. Or you can go down and become like a heroin addict or an alcoholic and just fall on your knees and meet your battles and lose, right? So I think the abyss is got two parts to it. And so when I was thinking about all this in relation to writing a lyric poem or in relation to experiencing the lyric in my life, like what is a lyric experience in your life? I was trying to figure out, well, where does the lyric take you? Where do I want to go with it? And I think all these transformative experiences, being indwelt with Duende, or going into the Dionysian, or going into the abyss, it's all about, and it sounds strange, but it's all about wanting to roll back to a place of possibility within yourself. A place where the unmanifest is something that you can still tap, you know. It's where you still have your infinite possibility. And that's really what a lyric poem is. It's like you read one of those and you're like, oh, we didn't go anywhere, we're still moving, right? And so that was my kind of thoughts on the lyric and the narrative. Wow, that was short. You know, I promise you, when did we start? Do you guys have questions?
Just to go over it.
I knew it for a fact. It took at least 20, if not 40 minutes. I was like really worried. I was thinking it was going to take an hour. But I covered a lot of territory very quickly, didn't I? Yeah, well, I was originally going to stop and ask you if you could think of any of your own lyric moments, like, and how to access them, or if you have, or if you just come upon them. Oh, okay. I actually had 3 different endings for this. So one of them, this is a very ordinary, strange thing to talk about, but it was actually really profound to me. You know how jazz is a lot about timing, and when they talk about jazz, they talk a lot about how the notes embody that measure, right? It's a lot about time. And I grew up in a household with, I was an only child. My father listened to maybe some bluegrass and maybe some Marty Robbins or Gordon Lightfoot, and I mostly heard it in the car. I didn't hear any music in the house. So, my mother didn't really like music, and she liked for it to be quiet. So I grew up in silence, basically reading books, right? So when I was in junior high, I was very excited about this thing they called jazz. And Destiny grew up with jazz, and I said, Destiny, what should I listen to? And she's like, Bird and Diz. So I tried Bird and Diz, and you know, they're spastic, they're fast. You know, I couldn't hear that fast. They were making me nauseous. I didn't like them. I couldn't deal with it. I didn't understand what this was. So I was still curious, and I still wanted to know, so I would listen to jazz here and there. And my ex-husband's sister's second husband was really into jazz. So I said, well, tell me about jazz. And he's like, well, I love Miles Davis and John Coltrane. I'm like, okay. So I listened to Miles Davis and Paul Jones, but I didn't listen to it. You know, it wasn't blowing my mind, but I liked it. And over the years, I acquired more people's opinions on what I should listen to, Sonny Rollins, you know, Ornette Coleman. I really imprinted on Oscar Peterson, and I felt kind of bad about it because nobody seemed to think Oscar Peterson was great, but I did. Like, I loved him. And then I found Mingus. Now, Mingus is like the wasteland. So I got really into Mingus. But this is the point of the story. So we're talking 15 years of listening to jazz, right? And I still didn't like Bernie Diz. And not that long ago, I turned on Bernie Diz. And I didn't even know, like, I had done it, really. I just knew that this was great music. I was like, oh my God, this is great music. It wasn't fast. It wasn't edgy. It wasn't weird. It didn't make me nervous. It was my music. And it took me that long to enter into their time. Do you know what I mean? Their speed. You know, so suddenly I heard the space between the notes. It wasn't fast. You know, because my ear had been trained finally after a long time, you know, to be able to hear that. And so it's a common and it's kind of a boring, you know, in a way, example, but it was really very exciting because you know, that timing was in me in such a way where it was able to reverberate out, and I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel like it was fast. I felt like I had finally been able to hear it. So it was kind of almost a door you can walk through, you know. So that kind of has to do with the lyric. So has anybody thought of any lyric moments in their own life? Yeah.
I'm not sure this is a lyric.
Well, let's try it out. Let's try it out.
But I was, when I was 30,
yeah.
I was in a horrible car accident, and in time, it was like time had slowed down. I mean, even though things were happening,
it's all in slow motion,
very
right?
fast. Once my computer, it was like my computer. I was a passenger in a taxi cab, so I was just sitting and watching, and then it still that way to me. That the next moment, it was like, it does not compute.
It's absolutely a lyric moment. Absolutely.
And a very, I mean, two things really, it was a very violent crash, and I didn't think I was dying, and I was furious that I was dying because I was, you know, so many things go through your mind within a split second, and I was going, oh God, I'm leaving everything in such a mess.
Wow.
and relationships and everything.
Yeah.
And then, and what was the other thing? It was just, well, I guess I can't remember what I was going to say next, but it was just this, it was such a time thing, and that's what, you know. Yeah. And then it was also, it was so, you know, once and then I, you know, spent the night in the hospital, and I woke up the next morning, you know, in the hospital bed, and I had, you know, I was in casts and everything, and I was, and it was like a second after I was awake, and it registered, oh yeah, that happened, and it was just like, it was like my mind just went, why did this happen to me now? And something immediately came to me because I was running too fast with my life, and I was speeding along in not such a great direction, and so I.
A lyric moment and a revelation, an epiphany.
And it was an epiphany.
Yeah.
There was some abysmal moments to it, and it was the time thing that you said. Yeah. I guess made me remember that.
No, thank you. No, that's totally true, and I think a lot of people talk about experiences like that. It's kind of almost an expanded awareness.
Right.
You know, and epiphany, I'm glad you brought that up, because Joyce talks a lot about that, and you can have actually epiphany moments in novels as well. But he talks about being in tune with the quidditas of a thing. The quidditas isn't the whatness, of a thing. And so Emerson talks a lot about this too in relation to poetry. It's your aura fuses with the aura of the object, so you become one. And so there's no separation, so then you know it intimately, but and actually, that's where the shamans take it as well. They are, picked out because they're kind of naturally intuitive, but then they're trained their whole life. But at the end of their training, they're like that all the time. During the car crash moment, they're always completely in tuned to the plants, the animals, the environment, so that their awareness is just expanded like that, And it's a beautiful and wild experience. Yeah, and it's great that you got the epiphany the next morning. That's good. Because
yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Well, I have a moment.
Good.
Time. And I'm taking this opportunity because I don't know that I've ever really talked about it before, but it was when my grandchildren came to visit, and my daughter and her husband, and we went for a walk, and the river was very wild, okay? And lots of rocks and so on, and everyone was real careful, we're going along. And my daughter and her husband were up ahead, and the youngest grandchild and my middle grandchild were there, and all of a sudden, the youngest darted toward the edge, and she started to go over the edge. And that's when this time, now, this all motion, I can just see my hand going through the air and grabbing her.
Wow.
And I got her, of course.
Yes.
And my other granddaughter, I never told my daughter and her husband, why introduce even a thought like this? Because if she'd gone, the river was so wild. You don't want to think about that.
Right.
What I wanted to say is just this space that I was provided as,
It's beautiful. That's amazing. That's really amazing.
And then the granddaughter, the middle child, we've never talked about it either. But she started to weep a little bit, and we just hugged each other. Well, all three of us hugged each other.
Wow.
And we never said anything.
Wow. Yeah, that's very beautiful. I'm glad you got to share that, and that's so amazing how it will come to you. And those are kind of, it's not the same thing, but it's the idea of Duende coming to you when you need it. That battle. You guys both had an experience in which it came to you, that awareness when you needed it.
Well, that's what I'm feeling right now. I feel like I'm totally, all my cells are aware. Just talking about it, it's strange. I just
That's
feel
very
like
cool.
electrified in that way.
That's very cool.
Okay.
To be so present.
I'm going to be a pain in the ass. You guys have to know, this is my closest friend for, 30-some years now. So I have deep love for this woman. She is, and properly introduce you, Lindsay is a writer. She has a published book out called Desire, which is fabulous, that really explores in a very unique and original way the relationship between children and their mothers. Mothers and daughters more than anything. It's fabulous. She's a multi-time Polish poet, essayist, as well as a visual artist, and one of the smartest people I know. And so I'm constantly a pain in the ass with her. But when we first got into this conversation that sparked this talk tonight, I came back and I was all excited about this conversation. I ended up doing a sculpture, a wall sculpture that was based on this conversation, and trying to figure out how do you, within the context of a work of art, actually impose a lyric moment, and what you're talking about is an experience of lyric moment. How do you put that in the work and have it be an authentic lyric moment without it being overly controlled or pseudo-lyric in the work? How do you be in the lyric moment in order to put the lyric moment in the work? Or can you talk to that a little bit?
Did you do it?
I liked the piece a lot. It actually turned out pretty well, but it surprised me because what I ended up doing with it is a big wall sculpture, and I ended up kind of circling the whole thing to talk about the containment and to talk about the narrative structure of the whole thing, and then the lyric moment ended up being abstract with birds flying through the center of it. So I couldn't think of anything more lyrical in nature than a bird in the sky, because it's not grounded to objects so much. It's in in time and space as it's moving through the air, and that was one of the few things that I couldn't really think of that worked for that. And so yes, maybe, but how do you put a lyric, how do you control time within the construct of the work that you're doing and still maintain your ability to control and navigate the work, or do you get lost in the work and hope it spontaneously appears?
Well,
Sorry for being
good question, good in terms of the creative process. I actually wanted to bring them poems, and you were like, no.
Yeah.
I was going to bring you poems, examples of this exact thing. Well, how does this person do it? How does this person do it? How does this person do it? You can do it in any number of ways. I think that a lot of people have moments like this that they, it's actually not that complicated. Do you have to have any poems that are lyric in your bed?
No.
I don't know.
I was thinking of Encounter.
You were thinking what?
The Milos poem Encounter.
Oh. Do you have it memorized?
No. But tell me about it.
Oh, I have a lyric poem memorized. Okay. Okay, this is a little spontaneous for me, but I have actually probably 3 lyric poems memorized, but I won't attempt them all. The way in which you do it really is you're spinning a metaphor, or a symbol, because the symbol will tell you, like according to the symbolists, right after the Romantics, a symbol stands for everything that's on the other side of it. You don't have to show what's on the other side of it, you just show the symbol in the right way, in the right light, and they'll get to the other side, if you do it correctly. So, here's a poem, it's called Old Lady Day, it's about Billie Holiday, and I guess I should recite it first, so hopefully I can remember it, and then we'll talk about the way in which it's a lyric, or the way in which it might be something else. Old Lady Day. This is not the first time I've been assassinated. I get shot all the time. I once swilled a poisoned martini down to the twist before death brimmed my brain pan with helicopter chop and adrenaline. Just wait, resurrection soon comes back in style. You can count me in, count on me. Count Dracula waiting in the wings, cool on the on-deck circle, swinging 2 bats like there's all time in this wide, wide world. Time and endless bats. So you see, that's really not about anything, right? But it's about, in a way, everything. It's about, I get shot all the time, I once swilled, she's almost like she's already dead and she's still alive, time in and out, it turns into a baseball metaphor, it's beautiful, it's written by this guy named Sebastian Matthews, who's the son of William Matthews, a very famous poet. But, so, I know you're probably asking me more about like how to do it, but I'm going to give them an example of what it is first. So it's just wait, resurrection soon comes back in style. It's ideas, right? And in the example that I gave, and I should have brought it, Ode to a Nightingale, the song is beautiful, he's listening to the song, he's worried about death, he's worried about he's worried about illness. Do you remember what else he's worried about in the middle of that poem? This is a poet, sorry. And he wants to live forever, and then he's listening to the Nightingale song, and that's as close as he gets. Like that's his access to eternal moments is the Nightingale song. So it's not that hard in theory. Have I ever written one, even after I've been trying to think? I don't know if I've written any really brilliant ones. I think that it's really hard for me to scrape away the narrative because I feel like I'm kind of attached to like the, I'm kind of attached to time, which is maybe why I'm so fascinated with this, because I want to get out of it, and I don't know quite how. Maybe that's why, I was trying to think because I knew Destiny was interested in me being honest about my own creative process, and I was trying to think, well, why am I interested in all this stuff? And I think my answer was my kind of swift conclusion, which is just that I I love thinking about I love thinking about potential. Like, I feel like lyric holds potential, you know, like those endless moments, you know, what if you could access that all the time? I mean, it would be like really wild. Your awareness would just be so open. So, so yeah, but lyric poems just capture those little moments, or capture a kind of just a state of mind, you know? Yeah.
You know, I would think, I would say, as you're describing a lyric moment, to me it's an internal experience of time, which isn't based on the structure and segmentation that external time is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people give this external structure of time, the minutes, hours, days,
Mm-hmm.
a whole lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it's not real, it's completely insubstantial.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that is substantial is your inner perception,
Mm-hmm.
which expands and contracts depending
Mhm.
upon how connected you are.
Exactly, it's totally elastic, right? The idea of consciousness being elastic.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
thinking about how would you infuse that, say in visual art, it seems like you would want to have some kind of expression that is not so literal as to be readily dismissed, but symbolic or metaphoric, so that you would engage people with enough of their own inner process that they would, you know, lose track of the outer structure of
Mhm.
time experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely, which is what, you know, abstract expressionism was about in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you reminded me of something that's really cool, and I'm not deeply trained in this, but in certain Jewish Kabbalah sects, once you're touching somebody, you're always touching them, right? And they have within their system of thought kind of the possibility for all of it. It's like this is all one moment. Your whole life is just one moment, right? But also the sequential linear time that we experience more commonly. But you know, the Navajos, they don't have in their language, they don't have a past tense or a present, future tense. Everything is in the ever-present now, which is really beautiful and really amazing. What about the Mayan calendar? Is there anything that's
Well,
related?
one of the interpreters of the Mayan calendar that I've been interested in his work, he's also an art historian, which is interesting. His basic tenet is that indigenous cultures in general had more of a concept of time being art. It's what you do and how you create in the moment of experience. And that our culture has moved into time is money. Because basically we sell our time and we run our lives based on this whole idea that time is some kind of commodity. We have a lot, we have a little, and it's a completely different relationship. And so I think that, you know, my study of the Mayan calendar, etc., it's interesting to just subject yourself, at least momentarily, to a different external structure. If there aren't 7 days in a week, and in the Mayan system there's a sequence of 13. So what does it feel like? It feels completely different.
You have more time.
It feels like you have 2 weeks instead of just one. And it's because we're so indoctrinated and trained to our particular version, which is all over the world, which is completely arbitrary. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with natural cycles anymore.
No.
It doesn't have anything to do with the feminine. Completely eliminates that.
Right.
You know, it's totally a system based on commerce.
Yeah.
And especially our culture, I would say, is pretty immersed in time as a commercial commodity.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. During the French Revolution, they smashed all the clocks.
Good for them.
I know, right?
We should do that in our
They knew
revolution.
that was part of the problem. This whole industrial revolution coming in was making things faster,
Mhm.
and it was upsetting them, and they wanted to get back. I mean, They wanted to get back to where it was more open and free. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Would you say that again? Where did
During the French Revolution, one of their protests was to go, because they had put up clocks in the city. They smashed them all. Yeah, yeah,
They were onto something.
yeah, absolutely.
Does this have anything to do with people who wear watches and people who don't?
Can I say anything about that?
Sure.
Well, yeah, I used to purposely not wear a watch, however, I know, no, but what is happening in our culture today that is really freaking me out is I don't normally watch TV, but I was watching CSI Miami the other day for as long as I could take it. And the editing and the cutting and the sound things and the camera, it was all moving so fast. It was like watching something that was foreign to me. I had no idea how any mind could take this in. It was like, oh, well, we're getting bored now, so we have to cut to someplace else. Oh, well, we're almost bored, now we have to cut someplace else. There was no ability to sit with something,
Right.
you know? It was frightening.
Scenes in movies used to be up to 30 minutes long. Single camera, 30 minutes back.
Right.
Now the average edit is 6 seconds.
It's almost like
Isn't that ridiculous?
it's crazy. Yeah, yeah, crazy. So, yeah.
The conversation keeps bringing me back to a poem titled the Dickinson poem, I Dwell in Possibility. I can't remember it now.
Oh, that's so cool,
But-
yeah.
But yeah, that's, I heard that the other day.
No, that's so cool. I'm sorry, I don't know it. I mean, I read it, but I don't.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But, I was thinking about creative process, and you were saying, wouldn't it be cool if you could be in that state all the time? And, the different mystic traditions of whether it's Christianity or Judaism or Buddhist with the void or whatever, I do sort of meditation type practice, and I thought it would be great, if I could get into this state, and it'd be really great for writing poetry. But the fact is, you get, at least I get to a point where words aren't relevant. So then, there's nothing to write about.
I know.
So you have to go maintain some kind of a connection here, and to have a trigger to go to that creative space.
Not to be arrogant or anything, but I worry about that all the time. I do, because, well, what if I get so, that I can't write anymore, because so much of writing is about this earthly realm, and you're right, and, so yeah, you have to go. Thank you very much. Okay, bye, thanks.
Wish it could go on and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks. So yeah, and in meditation, they talk about, and I can't think of, I'm gonna space out on the words, but meditation is a great example because I think it takes you to a place where you're just totally at one with everything, right? And there is no time, there's nothing going on.
Just the subject tonight, writing about music. Well, that to me seems very strange or difficult because there's so much of music that to me I can't find the words.
Absolutely true, and that's probably why I'm teaching this class called Writing About Music. I just stand there dumbfounded. I'm just like, what am I doing here? So yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's beautiful when somebody manages, because I think words, I want to believe that words shine, you know what I mean? I want to believe that they reverberate in some beautiful, mystical way. In the beginning was the word, right? I mean, words are part of our creation system, and so I want to believe that words could be as powerful as music. I want to believe that a poem or a novel could be as good as music. I don't know, maybe. There's not many of them. Music's pretty powerful.
I really think that the poet is the best at finding words for the ineffable.
Yeah, well,
They're the ones who do it best for us.
yeah. And if it's a really good poem, and that's in a way like the lyric poem as well, it is the lyric experience. When you really have written a lyric poem, somebody reads it, they're in that experience. When it's really good, that's the experience. That's the beginning and the end of that lyric experience for both. We just connected it to the Dionysian. So yeah, you're right. And there's probably much better examples than what I recited, I just happen to know that one. So, yeah.
Can you do the My Beautiful poem?
I don't know. Back of my head, I can try.
You probably won't make a difference if you.
If I mess up. It's called, what's it called? It's called Hey You. Back when my head, like an egg in a nest, was vallow keen and dawdling, I shed my sweet beautiful and placed it by the rocks, and I can't do it.
Okay.
I can't do it. It's too bad. Yeah, I should have. Yeah, I could do it if I saw it once, but no. But that is a good one, and back in my head, like an egg in a nest was vallow keen and dawdling, I shed my sweet beautiful. No, I'm sorry. Any other thoughts? We had a dog. I didn't see the dog until just now. How cool. That's what I love about animals. See, I think they're in the ever-present moment all the time. Although I try to trick them. I'm like, you've already had a walk today, right? You don't remember that you didn't have a walk. So, yeah.
One of the things that's occurring to me, I spend a lot of time studying Jungian psychology.
Yeah.
And I think this has some bearing on how we as individuals experience structure and time and space and all of that. It has to do with our personality type as Jung understood it. And there are certain personality types that wear watches and need that kind of structure, and there are other personality types like mine that I can't remember the last time I wore a watch.
Yeah.
And various reasons for that. But so we all experience, there's experiences by kind of an innate predisposition that is beyond training or experience, but we just come in more with those predispositions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for addressing the watch issue. I feel like I should say something about the watch issue, but you wear it when you need it, because you have to be places sometimes, and then you don't. You get to have your whole weekend to exist endlessly. So, yeah, no, true, good, yeah.
And I'm always grateful for my friends that do wear them.
I just wear it.
Well, they did in one of those TED lectures. He's like, "How many of you are wearing a watch?" And and anyway, it was everybody who was under like 25. They don't wear watches because they all have their cell phones, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the watch is almost.
The other thing I've heard of, I've forgotten who did it, but an experiment where everybody closes their eyes and promises not to count, but will raise their hand when they think a minute is up. And most people raise their hands between 30 and 45 seconds in our culture.
Right. Wow.
Because we just don't even have a clear internal concept of how long a minute is.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we're kind of getting close to tonight, unless you guys want to keep going with this. We're good with that. But just letting you know, it's a little after 7.
Okay.
So if you want to have other things to do, we're kind of right at that. Any other thoughts?
I'm curious to know where you teach.
It's, what the College of Santa Fe turned into is now called Santa Fe University of Art and Design. That's where I teach.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you teach poetry?
I teach, at this moment I'm teaching this class called Writing About Music, and it's another class called Revisions, in which the students, it's a workshop class where we look over the process of revision and how you do that so I teach poetry, nonfiction, and fiction, all in that one class. So yeah.
Thank you so much.